Hello, this is Jennifer Simonetti-Bryan at the Weekly Tasting, and this week we have 4 French classic wines. Classic wines are classic because they've stood the test of time and they're delicious, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about them. So they are proof positive and they are absolutely delicious. So let's orient ourselves around France. The first wine we have in the pack is around Beaujolais. So Beaujolais is in the region of Burgundy, and a very, very classic region at that. And the second wine we have, we go to the Loire Valley, we go to the West Coast. This wine is from the region of Chinon, which is in the within the Loire Valley and in a sub-region of Touraine, and then we go to Chinon. And that's where that is from. Then we have Corbières. Corbières is a region in the Languedoc-Roussillon area of southern France. And lastly, we jump back over to the west coast for Bordeaux. The first wine we have is a Beaujolais. This is Fleurie. This is a cru of Beaujolais, and meaning it's the top. Now, when I say Beaujolais, a lot of people think of Beaujolais Nouveau. And Beaujolais Nouveau is a very early stage wine. It comes out the 3rd week of November, so it's like a baby wine. It just came out and it's right before Thanksgiving. But even though it shares the same grape variety as this wine, the Fleurie, which is called Gamay, they're not the same animal at all. Beaujolais Nouveau is very soft but bubblegummy and tutti fruity and very, very light. And that's not what cru of Beaujolais are. Cru of Beaujolais, like this Fleurie, are serious wines, and you're definitely going to tell the difference here, even though they share the same grape and they come from the general same area. But the village of Fleurie is one of the cru of Beaujolais, and it is, I usually think it's a bit softer, more feminine character than, let's say, a Morgon or Moulin à Vent, both of which are cru of Beaujolais. But the aromas I get are raspberry and black cherry, and the soil itself is kind of granite, and I almost think I smell some granite in there too. So I don't know if that's just my mind playing tricks, but those are my markers for Beaujolais, cru of Beaujolais, and Fleurie in particular. So it's a delicious wine. In terms of decanting, I don't think it needs any real long airtime. It's just good as is, but I believe all wines benefit from even at least 15 minutes, but you got to decant it. You can't just let it sit there open because then nothing happens. You got to let some oxygen circulate in there. And in terms of food pairing, this Fleurie probably goes extremely well, and probably one of very rare wines that goes with fish. So red wine with fish. I would guess maybe a cedar plank salmon. Ooh, that sounds quite good. And the salmon is going to make the raspberry flavors of this wine really pop. So you're going to enjoy that. The next wine we have is Chinon. Chinon is in the region of Touraine, which is in the larger region of the Loire Valley. And Touraine in France is known as the Garden of France. Why? Because they've got all of these gorgeous castles and gardens and historic towns. It's a wonderful place for them to visit and vacation and get away for a weekend, let's say from Paris. But it's beautiful. Now, Cabernet Franc is the father of Cabernet Sauvignon. I don't know if you knew that. Cabernet Franc got busy with Sauvignon Blanc many ages ago, and out came the crossing of Cabernet Sauvignon. So a little bit of trivia there. But Cabernet Franc, even though it's the father of Cabernet Sauvignon, it's not as big as Cabernet Sauvignon. And in the region of Chinon, it is traditionally unoaked. So there is no oak to beef it up. And because it's a cooler region, the Loire Valley is pretty far north. It's probably on the same latitude above Nova Scotia, actually. And because it's cooler there, it takes on a lighter character and a higher acidity. Now on the nose, in terms of aromas and flavors, I always get a raspberry fruit kind of aroma. So in these first 2 wines, we're still getting that red fruit character. But I also get some herbaceousness. It's got a strong kind of green note to it, which is actually quite pleasing. It's an herbal note that I get there. And I get some minerality, and on the palate it is really high in acidity, almost as high as, let's say, Pinot Noir. This is what makes it an incredible food wine, and very, very refreshing. Now, in terms of tannins, just like Pinot Noir, it's not as bitter or tannic like Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's on the lighter, softer end of the spectrum in terms of bitterness. But it's that structure of acid that makes it go well with food. Now, when I was traveling throughout the region of the Loire, I was stopping by a charcuterie, and a charcuterie is a store, I guess you would say, that sells cured meats, or like salami, I guess pepperoni, if you know, those kinds of saucisson, those kinds of things. And I don't want to call it deli meats; it just doesn't sound as good. But charcuterie sounds so much better. And I was there right before lunch, and when I was there, there were vineyard workers who were just coming off a shift of pruning vines. I was there in the wintertime. And as I was there, you know, these old men and with the cabbie hats, and their hands were all worked, and you could tell that they spent many, many hours outside. Now, they went to the charcuterie and they asked for a red wine, and I was like, inching closer to their communal table to figure out what it was that they were ordering. Well, they were ordering a red wine, but they were ordering it in water glasses like this. And I figured, well, whatever it is that they have, I want. So I tasted it, and that was my first taste of Chinon, which lets you know that this can be a casual wine. It doesn't have to be, lofted to these elegant glasses. Try it in a water glass and see what you think. But make sure you try it with some charcuterie, whether it's salami or some strips of cheese. That's really going to bring out some of those raspberry flavors in the wine. And actually, it may even play back some of that herbaceousness. Now we move on to Corbières. This wine is Château de Saint-Louis, and this chateau actually is really quite interesting. On the estate for this wine in Corbières, which is in the Languedoc in southern France, they found a mill. They were digging deep, and then under that they found a priory, a medieval priory, which is kind of like a monastery. And then under that they kept digging and they found a Roman villa. So wines have been made on this estate, this particular estate, since the 5th century. I mean, how cool is that? Well, I thought it was cool. But Corbières is in a region in the Languedoc-Roussillon, which is closer to Spain than it is to Italy. So it's very southern. It almost reminds me of a cross between Tuscany and Southern California in terms of the way it looks. You know, the rolling hills, but you've got the Mediterranean Ocean there, and they've got palm trees. So you know this is a warmer climate, and in this warmer climate, you're gonna have warm climate grape varieties. This is 35% Syrah, and I think 40% Grenache, which is a beach bunny of a grape, and 15% Carignan. And in this wine, you're gonna be able to taste all of those grapes in here, and each one adds its own distinctness to the wine. The Syrah adds a rich raspberry note with some black pepper notes, so you get some of that black spice. Grenache is a little bit lighter in its cherry notes and adds a little bit of licorice as well. But the Carignan, it gives it a little bit more of a beefiness and some spice to it. But you're going to taste the ripeness of this wine. We're not in a cool climate anymore. You're going to taste the sunshine in this glass. And it's more spice driven than herbal driven. But you know, I think if you were gonna do a food pairing with this wine, probably closer to burgers, especially if you put black pepper in your burgers, which I do. And I think that'll bring out some of that black spice of the wine. Or, if you have a raspberry, if you have lamb with rosemary, that's probably on a good level with this wine, and it'll bring out the raspberry flavors, and it'll bring out some of that more spiced aromas. Now this wine, it's a little bit bigger. We're going to the bigger end of the spectrum, and I think it would be easier to let this decant for a little while so that the aromas can really come out. But make sure, every 15 minutes, you're going back to it, swirling it around and seeing what you're getting and where it is that you like this wine at what time it's decanted. The last wine that we have is from Bordeaux. Everybody loves Bordeaux, but this Bordeaux is from the right bank. Now, I teach my students, if you want to tell the difference between those on the right bank versus the left bank, those on the left bank, you put your hand out and make an L with your hand. You can also make a C. So the left bank is Cabernet Sauvignon, which means the right bank is Merlot. So on the left bank, it's dominant in Cabernet Sauvignon, but on the right bank, which is where this wine is from, it is mostly made with Merlot. Unlike the Cabernet Franc that we saw earlier, this does have some oak in it. And what oak adds to a wine is vanilla and spice and richness, and sometimes a little bit of grip to the wines. Oak, the newer the oak barrels, or the percentage of new barrels that it's matured in, the more intense that punch of vanilla or chocolate or brown spice you're going to get out of that. With Merlot, I usually get some blackberry and plum notes, and I always get some black tea as well. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, get some English breakfast tea, open up one of the bags and crush some of the leaves in your palm and smell that, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And then you can smell the wine again and you'll get that. But I always get blackberry, plum, and tea leaf, or tea leaves, black tea leaves in Merlot. But I also get that vanilla spice and chocolate that you mostly get from the oak. Now this region is Puisseguin-Saint-Émilion. Now don't confuse it for Saint-Émilion, because Saint-Émilion is one region, but Puisseguin-Saint-Émilion is northeast of Saint-Émilion, and it's a gorgeous town if you ever get the chance to visit it. And if you're going to decant it, I would decant it and leave it for about a half hour, and then see what you think after that. I think you're going to find that even more aromas are going to come forth, because sometimes you're going to get, like in a lot of Bordeaux, you get some cigar notes or cedar notes that come through as well. And that's beautiful, especially if you're going to put it with something like, I would choose a steak, but I would choose something with a little bit more fat, like a ribeye. And Merlot has less acidity than Cabernet Sauvignon, even though sometimes they can be confused for one another, even by some of the best of us. But Cabernet Sauvignon generally tends to have higher acid, so this Merlot is going to be, it's not going to cut through all of that fat, so it's going to make it nice and soft and rich, and it's going to bring out those really ripe, plummy notes there. So I'm going to leave you with a toast. It's my favorite toast. May all of your joys be pure joys, and all of your pain be champagne. Until next time, cheers.